one of the preeminent Afrocentric scholars. He said in his book, Pre-Colonial Black Africa, on page 98 and 102, he said, as for the so-called Arab invasion of Africa, it is a figment of the imagination. It never happened. Only twice were there foreign armies that entered into black Islamic Africa. 1591 with the invasion of Songhai and the destruction of Timbuktu and the destroying of his library. The army itself was a Portuguese mercenary army sent by the Moroccans. And then in the 19th century by Muhammad Ali, who himself was a Macedonian, an ex-slave himself. So never was there an Arab army that entered into Africa. Where was it? Never happened in history. The Islamization of Africa occurred at the hands of Africans, the armies of the Africans, Askil Muhammad and his army, the people of Takrur who conquered Ghana, which is another misnomer in his book. He says that it was the El Moravids or the Morabitun who conquered Ghana. This was not if he could only read the Arabic and he read the book Al-Musalik wa Mimalik by al-Bakri, he would know that the country that bordered Ghana was Takrur. And Takrur had become Morabitun way before the Lamtuna or the Sanhaja had become Morabitun. They were students of Wazaj ibn Zalu, an African who founded the Dar Morabitun school, and they were their students. These Tukulur, Fulani, Fufulbe, Jula, Mandinka were the ones who conquered Ghana and Islamized Ghana, not Arabs. And that's a historical fact. All of the armies that swept Africa were all Africans. It was a war between Muslim Africans and non-Muslim Africans. The non-Muslim Africans felt that their way of life was as valid, and the African Muslims felt that theirs was valid, and Allah Ta'ala, He decided. They're all Muslims now. And in fact, you'll find that when Islam came, it is then that all the languages in Africa, Mandinka, Hausa, Wolof, Soninke, had all began to be written down in Arabic script. It was then it became literary. It was then that scholarship emerged among the Africans. Books on astronomy, books on ethics, books on philosophy, books on medicine, books on government, all emerged between the 9th, the 10th, and the 19th century, all at the hands of African Muslims. And the African Muslims did not become Arabs. They kept their own African traditions. Thus, when you see the tomb of Askil Muhammad, the founder of the Songhai Empire, it's a step pyramid, which shows that they never ever gave up their ancient pharaonic Kemet traditions. Those traditions which were consistent with Islam, they kept them. They kept their personality. And one African scholar, Umar Jah, he said eloquently, he said, Islam is like a clear water that takes on the colors of the rocks that it flows over. Thus, when Islam hit China, it was it took on Chinese flavor. When Islam hit Andalusia, it took on an Andalusian Spanish flavor. When Islam hit Bosnia and Romania, it took on a European flavor. And of course, when Islam hit Africa, in fact, it hit Africa first. It was the first nation state, unified state to embrace Islam were the African people. So we were the first. We predated even the Arabs of Mecca. When they were kicking Prophet Muhammad out, it was the Ethiopian king who embraced Prophet Muhammad and the religion of Islam. And in the letter, the letter of Prophet Muhammad to the Ethiopian king defines what Allah Ta'ala would do in Africa, and Allah did it. And it was a succession of nothing but proud, independent, high civilization Islamic government, which stretched from the Red Sea all the way over into the Atlantic, and it jumped over into during the Atlantic slave trade into Bahia, Brazil, and gave birth to the slave revolts that marked most of the history of the United States. Yes.
As you mentioned in regards to Kemet, and what is the relationship that Muslims have had, and those are the followers of all the prophets, with Kemet? Is Kemet, as we know it today, people are saying Egypt, And as they say, Abyssinia, Ethiopia, are they related, and how they related, and what was the relationship with Muslims?
No, it's no doubt that the research that Sheikh Anta Diop have laid out, and his Presence Africaine, and the students who have inherited from him, Rahimahullah, may Allah Ta'ala be merciful to him, the research that he first laid out is true. There is no doubt that ancient Egypt was an African, black African civilization. There's no doubt about that. Only historians who are guilty of clear bias would say contrary to that. He also points out that